All right, here we go. Happy Sunday to everybody. Well, not so happy because the Knicks lose another devastating game in crunch time. They played 3 1/4 good quarters, but once again, Tommy D, man, the Knicks just could not close down the stretch. They have a 5-minute lead with 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and the wheels fell off totally, man. What'd you see out there down the stretch from this team?
Yeah, and happy Thanksgiving, obviously, CP and everybody who's tuning in. I hope everybody had a happy and safe one. And, you know, it was pretty similar. I was at the game the other night against Philly, and pretty similar result there. Really good first half. Knicks actually played a better third quarter than they did the other night, but very close game coming down the stretch, tie game with 6 minutes left. And I know we're going to talk about this later on and break it down a little bit further from an X's and O's standpoint. But it's the out of timeout stuff that we have talked about and basically just the execution. And you know, I think when a lot of people reacted initially when I started talking about it, it's, you know, sort of, you know, am I calling for the coach's head or anything like that? It's not like that. It's more about getting an understanding of, you know, sort of what those situations are about. What are they running in those situations? And obviously going up against some pretty good coaches in the NBA who were prepared and ran into probably the best in the business out of timeouts tonight, and Brad Stevens. Yeah. And, you know, he really had his guys prepared. They executed, and they ended up winning the game going away.
I mean, 5-point lead with 8 minutes left. Celtics then start to bomb away from 3. You had Ojale, you had Tatum, and you had Grant Williams knock down some jumpers. You know, they end up tying the game at 95 all, and then after that, it's 4 straight turnovers by the Knicks. You had a shot clock violation. You had Dotson giving the ball up. You had Randall turning it over. You had DSJ and Kevin Knox on some miscommunication there. It just seems like, once again, you know, good teams find a way to win, bad teams find a way to lose, as the old saying goes. And I just think, once again, this was another game that the Knicks just couldn't execute down the stretch, man.
I don't know if they win the game with Marcus Morris, but they certainly lost the game because they didn't have Marcus Morris. Brown and Tatum combined, I think, for 59 or 58 or 59 points. Obviously knocking down big shots late. Tatum is a closer. We know this. We saw this earlier in the season. Yeah. And to that point, coming into the season, Stevens versus Fizdale in that out of timeout stuff. Both coaches obviously are prepared. They know what they're going to do going into games. First 2 games, the Celtics were 14-0. They were up 14-0 in those situations.
14-0 after the timeout, right? 14-0 after the timeout.
In the first 2 games, and that obviously expounded today with the numbers coming from today. But yeah, Brad Stevens is a surgeon in those situations. You can almost call him Dr. Stevens. Again, not just against the Knicks, against most teams. He's probably the best at it in the league. But not having Marcus Morris, who obviously played for them last year, certainly hurt them. Yeah. And obviously the Celtics come away with their 3rd win of the season against the Knicks, 2nd at home against, or 2nd on the road at the Garden.
Yeah, and as you say, I mean, not having Mook out there from an offensive standpoint didn't necessarily hurt us tonight, but certainly on the defensive end, you know, which I think is an underrated aspect of his game, given that his offensive prowess this season. Because once again, the 3-point defense is what doomed us, man. I mean, they just started bombing away from downtown late in the game, and I thought. Overall, I thought the defense was fairly good, but you know, crunch time once again, we just couldn't get the proper stops.
No, Ntilikina as well in his Clyde always says, you know, great defense leads to offense, and in those situations coming out of those timeouts, 4 turnovers and 5 possessions generally gets the other team out in transition. Transition leads to either easy baskets or secondary transition, which is ball movement. And that's where you saw either, you know, the easy baskets or the 3-pointers coming off of, you know, that ball movement from the initial transition that started at the defensive end. And that was the difference in the game for sure.
Yeah, that's it, man. And you know, overall, I thought this was one of their best games that they played. Now we've lost a lot of games down in crunch time, but this game, I mean, you needed a good game out of Dennis Smith Jr., especially us being shorthanded in the backcourt. He came out, he played 3 quarters of pretty good ball. He got us deep into the paint. He was hitting his jumpers, 2 for 3 from downtown, 6 for 11 on the field overall, 7 dimes. I thought this was DSJ's best game since the Dallas game because, I mean, not saying too much because he's been fairly terrible in between. But with Frank out, I thought DSJ stepped up. And I think the domino effect going into the next story of the game was Kevin Knox, because I thought DSJ did a good job of getting Knox set up. Kevin Knox coming in with his first start, and you know, the story tonight or this week was, you know, Fizdale benching him in the Philly game, and how would he respond? What'd you think about Knox tonight?
Yeah, I thought what you saw there was a young player responding to a message that was delivered by his coach. And I think that gets lost in all the noise a lot of times. And I think Coach Fizdale said this himself. You know, people, and I agree with this. People think that development is just all about playing, and it's not. It's definitely not just all about playing. It's about, sometimes you have to sit and take a look and sit with an assistant coach and go through, you know, hey, this is where you need to be. And, you know, in certain situations, this is where, you know, your help defense needs to be. Knox he's been exposed in 2-man game. Anytime there's been side pick and roll, or he's the one who's got to guard the guard and pick and roll, he has a hard time handling that. And that's been a weakness that gets exposed. And it's a copycat league. We all know that. So his defense has been a problem. I thought his defense was really good tonight. And on the offensive side, at least in the first half, on the offensive side, what you saw was him making shots to get his confidence going, but also cutting off the ball. When he moves off the ball instead of standing around, when he moves off the ball, you know, if somebody goes to try to make a shot and he goes and tries to attack it on the offensive glass, his energy levels rise.
Right.
And that's, as a coach, when you notice a guy is standing around, Dennis Smith Jr. did that in the second half tonight. I noticed first half he had a lot of energy. Then you have to wonder what's going on with the energy. And from a coaching standpoint, I think they did a great job in getting a message sent to him the other night against Philly, and then having him come out and playing a pretty productive game overall, especially in the first half. That was good. A good sign for him, and he took a step forward.
Definitely a good sign, because you mentioned energy, and that was another topic that they brought up on the broadcast, and a topic for Knox since we drafted him. It's been about the motor and how to keep him involved and how to get his energy up. And the Knicks coaching staff went on record as saying they want to get him more aggressive and have him attacking more. As you said, his energy was a lot better, especially on the cuts. Like I said, I liked how DSJ got him involved. You know, again, having that dribble penetration just makes things so much easier, especially when you're spacing the floor a lot better. And again, the help defense from Knox. You know, you saw him with a couple blocks out there tonight. So he was definitely aggressive. RJ, I thought, set a good tone for this game as well. I thought RJ did a good job on both ends, really staying aggressive and attacking. What you think about RJ tonight?
I thought it was his best game the other night against Philadelphia in the Garden. Down the stretch, what I really wanted to see from him was sort of this takeover ability, and, you know, hopefully he could carry them to the win. And I'm going to go on record on this, and I'm going to stick to this as long as he's in the league, or both are in the league. I'm taking RJ Barrett over Ben Simmons any day of the week, and twice on Sunday, today being Sunday. He's a better overall player. What he showed down the stretch the other night, even though they didn't win, was just really fantastic stuff. He brought the ball on the baseline like Steve Nash did, his godfather. They call that the Nash dribble, and made a couple plays the other night that at 19 years old, you just sort of scratch your head and say, you know, this kid's going to be really, really good. He's a foundational piece. We've talked about this. We know this. Tonight, off to a great start. You know, I think just struggled going against Tatum and Brown and their, you know, veteran abilities. Tatum coming from behind once with the block, I think early in the game, and then Stevens sort of game planning around him, which is such a compliment to a young player. So he's going to continue to learn from that for sure. But I thought he did have a really good game, coming off probably his best game as a pro the other night.
Yeah, and you mentioned those baseline dribbles, man. He's been really, really good at that. Like every time I see him doing that, I'm like, I cringe, like it's a turnover waiting to happen. But he makes something out of it, and ends up usually getting assists or hockey assists, along the way. So I thought RJ was definitely solid tonight. Dotson, I thought, gave us some good minutes in the first half on both ends as well. He was typical Dotson, just getting after it on the defensive end, knocked down a couple threes here and there. I thought Dotson set a good tone for us as well.
Well, you're talking to the captain of the Portsmouth Invitational ship in terms of really just enjoying. I've been there a bunch. I've helped there a little bit, just in doing some scouting. But what I love about that tournament is that it's a lot of 4-year guys, a lot of older 22 and 23-year-olds who have graduated, but Dotson a couple years ago was the MVP down there out of University of Houston. The Knicks selected him. He's been, to me, a really good two-way player. Obviously, coming off the shoulder surgery, hasn't been completely healthy coming into the year. Coming into form here, played some really good minutes the other night. He's active. His energy level is always very strong. He's a total pro. He's going to guard the 1. He's going to guard the 2. He'll get loose balls and hasn't really shot it well yet. As we've seen him shoot it a lot better. But when he starts to do that, then I think you're going to see him and his confidence rise overall. And certainly, I think they have it as sort of a Dotson Trier thing, and Dotson's in the lead for now. And when getting the minutes, and he's rewarding them with his effort for sure.
Yeah, he played well with his minutes. It's just unfortunate, man. It's just unfortunate that these guys can't yet really just come together down in crunch time. I mean, what would you attribute that to? Do you think it's the point guard, just not getting us where we need to be in crunch time? Because obviously it ends up back in Julius's hands, trying to force a play here and there. What do you think it is?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. First and foremost, I think it's combinations. Okay, it's who's on the floor with who and why. Smith on the floor tonight with Knox. They weren't on the floor together the other night. So in those situations, you're playing against a completely different team. Yes, you're playing at home, but you're just not used to the experience. Maybe everybody always talks about next man up, but that always isn't something that can happen if guys just aren't maybe mentally prepared and not understanding the opponent. Who the Celtics are, you feel like, but I just feel with where Randall is now and what they're trying to accomplish, it's very similar to football. And I think I heard Wally say this in the post game, not having a quarterback who can run sort of the 2-minute drill. When you have turnovers out of timeout situations, then you've got to really make it simple. It's like if your young quarterback throws an interception, next time you get the ball, you're probably going to be running a lot of, run plays and, screen passes and just really basic stuff so you don't turn the ball over again. So what they did with Randall is sort of, just sort of this flex cut and then have him post up on the right block and see if he could go to work in isolation, draw some double teams. So that's really, it's not an imaginative offense, but it's not because they don't know to create that offense. It's more to protect the basketball after they'd already turned it over a lot. So it comes down to execution. It comes down to pairings, matchups, who's on the floor. And they've just ended up on the wrong side of those really for the better part of the season.
Execution, man, as you said. I mean, down that stretch, once again, we're tied up. And 4 straight turnovers. Again, Dotson just basically handing the ball off to Jaylen Brown. You had the Julius, the shot clock violation, shooting a 3-ball. Just not smart basketball, man. Just not smart basketball.
So let's talk about those two. The high entry post pass is a hard pass, difficult. And especially if, the guy who you're passing it to, who is basically essentially posting up at the elbow or the high post or the 3-point line, wherever he ends up, it really has to seal off the defender who, can be very aggressive in that situation. If it's a Randall who's not the fastest guy, and that's not going to be a dunk if he goes for a steal and doesn't get it, right? So I wouldn't necessarily put Dotson in the position to make that pass. I think it's a tough situation. I'm not going to say I wouldn't know how to do it. What do I know? But,
Yeah.
Dotson in that situation, not comfortable. So there's the turnover there. And then the other one is on Randall in my mind, because he gets a good pass from Smith Jr. and waits. And then the double comes at him, and he's lefty, and he throws a really weak right-handed pass that gets deflected. They get possession back, but now you're deep in the clock. You're 40 feet from the basket, and then you got to force a three. So if you make a harder pass there or a better pass there, that possession may turn out differently. So that was the one where I'm like, that's on Randall to not, make such a weak pass there to create this up against the shot clock that he's got to force a three. To me, that's when the game was over. And, if you're Randall and you want to be a leader and you want to be an all-star and you want to be respected as this, great player in the league, can't make those plays.
Can't make those plays. Absolutely, man. Well said.